Hey, are you a business owner, entrepreneur, or professional? If so, we want you to apply to be a featured guest on our show. My name is Adam Torres, and I host the Mission Matters series of podcasts. I've recorded over 3,000 episodes, and we are just getting started. How do you know if you'd be a good guest to be on the show? Well, only one way to find out, and that's to apply, but I'm going to let you in on a little secret. We want guests that have a story to tell, guests with a brand, a product, or a service that can benefit my audience of listeners. If this sounds like you, go to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to apply. I'd love to talk to you and get to know more about your story. Again, head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to apply. All right, now let's get into the show. Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of the Mission Matters Business Podcast, your source for all things business. My name is Adam Torres. You can follow me on Instagram at AskAdamTorres. Keep up with my book releases, book tour schedule, signings, all that other good stuff. Always love to connect with you there. And as always, if you'd like to apply to become a co-author of one of my upcoming books, just head on over to the website, missionmatters.com, and click on Be Our Guest to apply. All right, so today I have Matthew Spence on the line, and he's president over at Spence & Company. Matthew, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Adam. Appreciate the invitation.
All right, I like today's topics. Everybody knows they should get to the point and be concise, but very few know how, and I know you're an expert at getting to the point. So let's just get started with, tell us a little bit more about what you're doing over at Spence & Company, please.
Spence & Company was started by my father in 1953. We've been teaching workshops and now, webinars on business writing ever since then. My brother joined him in the late 70s, and I started in around 2005. Basically, what we do is we're based on the assumption that effective communication requires clear thinking, that before you write, you need to think about what am I trying to accomplish here with a desired outcome. And we teach people a systematic way of thinking about what their proposal is, what their argument is, what's next, and there's a generic but a flexible but consistent structure that people can think through to most effectively communicate in any context. Email, memo, report, whatever it is, it all follows a similar structure. That's what we do.
Man, that's amazing. And love the family business. Second generation communication.
Yeah.
You don't come across that often.
No, it's in the blood.
That's amazing. So at the end of this, I'll give you the opportunity to leave, of course, contact information and things like that, but I want to make sure that the right individuals and organizations do follow up. What types of niches or size of companies, or what's your sweet spot in terms of who's usually a good fit to work with Spence & Company?
Spence & Company has always worked primarily with engineers, scientists, technical people who are visual thinkers, people who solve problems in pictures, people who are systems thinkers, right? And so heavy data people, right? People have a lot of information, and then they got to cook it down into something really tight and focused. And they just, often their strength is math and science. And they feel maybe, not quite so sure in terms of their language skills, their English, their communication skills. So we end up working a lot with technical people, engineers, scientists, and small firms, but also corporate clients as well.
What are some of the most common mistakes that people make in business communication?
There are three things typically we've seen over the years that people do. The first one is just hands down what everybody does, is what we call the mystery story. The most important information is at the end of email. Your conclusions and recommendations are at the end. Why? Because we're writing email, we're figuring it out as we go along, and then suddenly at the last sentence we know, oh, okay, that's what I want to say, and that's often the best statement of what we're trying to accomplish. So, most important information at the end. That's the first mistake.
And so, I mean, how do you recommend people do this differently? So do I take that last thing and put it in the beginning, or and I don't want to oversimplify this in the 15-minute podcast, but now that you say that, I'm thinking to myself, I do that all the time.
Right. No, we do it all the time because we're figuring out, we're presenting our ideas in the order in which we did our thinking, and then we arrive at the end. Yes, You literally turn it upside down. And then you look at it and you say, okay, if I'm going to start by saying, look, I propose we do this, give me a little context first, a sentence or two. Why are you writing? Are you answering a question? Have you completed analysis? Are you responding to a request? Are you solving a problem, right? Some kind of context, we got a problem. I think we should do this. And then you give me your argument, and then you tell me, okay, what do we do next to advance this, right? But look at that last sentence and put it at the beginning. Once you realize that's your primary communication, then you have to think about the rest in terms of how do you organize it.
Yeah, that's great advice. So I see, and obviously let's just stick on email a little bit longer here.
Yeah.
I mean, we're trying to keep, many times we have 100, 150, who knows, depending, 300 emails a day. It just depends on the person. I mean, what do you think, are there any other tips or tricks or things we should think about when trying to keep up?
Right. The main thing to understand is that communication is about clear thinking. If you know what you want to say, if you're clear what your argument is, an email writes itself, right? The hardest time to write is when you don't know exactly what you want to say. So what you want to do as much as possible is to think before you write. Say, what is my desired outcome? What am I trying to accomplish here? Very specifically, what do I want my readers to do? In other words, that's a recommendation, right? Or what do I want them to believe or understand? That's your evaluation of a situation. What is my opinion? What is my assessment, right? What do you want your readers to do or believe? Now, sometimes, as you say, we don't tend to do this. We're writing on the fly. We got a whole lot of emails to write. So what I say is just do what you're already doing. And then look at that last line and say, is that what I really want to say? Or where in my email is the best statement of what I really want to say? Take that, put that up front, and then see what you have to do with the rest of it to make the flow work.
What are some of the other, outside of email, what are some of the other things that people, kind of mess up when it comes to business communications that they may even not be aware of?
The second thing people do is what we call the data dump. People give too much information. They assume that in order to understand anything, people have to know everything, or that the more information they give, the better people will understand. But we're all dealing with so much information these days that I need focus. Tell me just, and so how much information to include? You only include enough information to prove or support the primary idea that you're trying to get across. Don't overwhelm people.
Yeah, I think that has to do a lot with even just creating content nowadays. I mean, the length of it, what we do, how we do it, where we deliver it, like all of these things do. They all play a factor in how we get our message across, or we fail. One of the two. How do you typically work with companies? Is it workshops? Is it seminars? Is it virtual? I mean, give us a feel for like how you typically take on a new company.
What I do is, yes, I teach workshops and webinars. Of course, in the last year, we went virtual, which actually I find I really love. It works really well. And then I basically teach 2 4-hour sessions that we really go deep on how do we think clearly, and then what does that mean all the way down in terms of sentence structure, paragraphs. How do we use language to get our ideas across? How to use lists, bulleted lists, details all the way down of just the whole thing. And then afterwards, I meet for 30 minutes with each individual, and I go over writing samples they sent me before. So I give individual feedback. We look at specific, what are your particular patterns? Are you writing mystery stories, or are you just too wordy, right? Do you tend to use a lot of data? What are your particular things you do that if because you're not going to learn how to do it, change it all at once, right? So we take it's like, okay, where do you start? And if you begin to have a sense of that process of continuous improvement, then, we set you on a path, and you periodically can go back to the books that I've written and the basic principles of effective communication. You begin to see over time, oh, I can do this better. Oh, now I can focus on this. And I just get people started on a kind of continuous, the continuous journey of because communication can always be better, right?
No, for sure. Well, Matthew, I have to say it's been great having you on the show today, and I'm going to use some of the tips that you gave myself, especially with that email thing and thinking about that last sentence and what I actually want to say. So this has been great for me, and I hope it has for my audience also. If somebody's listening to this and they want to learn more about Spence & Co. And company, what's the best way for them to follow up and to do that?
Best way is just to go to my website. It's spenceandco.com. That's SPENCEANDCO.com. That's
fantastic.
me.
Well, Matthew, again, appreciate you coming on the show today. And to the audience, as always, thank you for tuning in. Hope you got a lot of value out of this. If you did, don't forget, hit that subscribe button. Definitely want you to be a return listener. And Matthew, thanks again for coming on the show. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Adam. It's been fun.